Great to have you back here again, Tomo, talking about your sheep, your journey in your sheep.
Yep.
Last time we touched on quite a bit about history and where you got yourself established in the 80s and 90s, some discoveries you had around with Jim Watts taking the skin off sheep and the impact that had. And I think we intentionally didn't move into this space, which is the fat, muscle and growth piece. And I'd really love to, probably go back to where that started to make a lot of sense in your mind, and then how the focus on that impacted the sheep.
Yeah, well, I suppose in 2002 we uncovered a ram 020789, and he had really good numbers. Well, we didn't know about the numbers then, but it was Ferg, Mark Ferguson. He contacted me and wanted to come and have a look based on the numbers of 789, and so we didn't know quite what we had, no idea really. And then when he came and he explained the importance, particularly of those three traits, and that was what we then concentrated on. And
did he look like sorry to interrupt, Tom, did he look like an outlier sheep inside your flock at the time? Did it, from a phenotypical point of view, did he stick out?
Yep, absolutely. So no well on his points. Never got skinny. He didn't have deep crimping wool, so that was the thing that was against him. But he was a fine crimper, but he was long in the wool. So he did have one glaring fault, that he wasn't too good through the shoulders. But we thought we didn't have much else, so we pushed through with that, and that was first lambs in 2004, or first ones to measure 2004. So that was really just our first crack at it. But it was Ferg saying if you actually select for growth, muscle and fat, you will get an increase of 25% in your lambs weaned, and that was firstly happened as he predicted.
Yeah. Okay. So those as those lambs come through, like, take us through how that evolution came. Ferg said it. You could trust the words of Ferg for sure, but you wanted to obviously see it replicated in your flock. Talk us through that piece.
Well, you end up seeing the sheep you don't like. So there was less and less of the sheep we didn't like. So just the heavier skins, the dark tips, the muffy faces. We were getting those out. It was more about lifting the bottom as trying to go forward at the front end. So that was, and that's important for commercial producers. Not just having 3 or 4 really good ones. You want the bottom end to come up, and that was what we were finding, that the bottom end, the flock was becoming a lot more even in type and in performance.
Did you see the numbers, like the ASBVs, start to reflect that straight away, or was there a delay in that time?
Yeah. Well, look, things like P weight didn't really hit its straps. It was probably 2010, 2012, somewhere around that period, that we really wanted to push a bit more P weight, just to try to get more growth in the lambs, and that was because I don't think it was great for P weight, but we didn't have the tools then. That was the thing. We were trying to find it ourselves. So and as Ferg said, it's compounding. Once you get those locked in, you can actually bring in more traits. So it took a while for that to actually start moving, and then by the early teens, 10s, 11s, 12s, 13s, that really started to kick into gear then.
Okay.
Yep.
So I suppose as you've gone through that evolution inside the stud flock, you started to also work with clients. I know you class a lot of sheep. You started to see that reflect in their flocks straight away, or?
No, mainly because, and it's still the case today, but not as much, there was a real poor understanding of ASBVs and the value of them. And I thought it was very poorly advertised or explained to producers the importance of those. And there was a lot of mixed messages about what traits you should be chasing. So that was the other thing. So It was fleece weight and fat, muscle, and growth were sort of antagonistic. It was very hard to get a high fleece weight with those other traits.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mm.
So I suppose with growth, fat, and muscle, there's a lot of performance that you see from a commercial aspect in your own flock, Tomo. Like you would have probably seen, and I'll let you extrapolate on this, but it's the numbers of lambs weaned, it's the numbers of pregnancies, it's the, like I'll let you answer this over time, but there's a lot in that resilience piece with fat that what you start to get is going back to what Ferg had identified back in the early days, was that sheep that have more genetic fat respond to farm situation quickly.
Absolutely, and the biggest thing about genetic fat is the ability of those sheep to hold on to condition, and so that was what it was all about, and that's what we found with our clients early on. Even though they didn't understand a lot of the ASBVs, they were getting a lot more lambs, and so that meant more twin lambs surviving. It's not more single lambs. It was more twin lambs surviving, and twin lambs being looked after well. So that was the role of fat. So we're less than optimum feed. A high fat ewe can actually raise twins successfully. So what we don't want is two runty bloody twins. They're no good for anyone. You want twins to be as good as a single. So that takes a bit of management, but fat helps you drive that. And I still to this day say, if I had one trait to choose, I would choose Y fat every single time.
Amazing. So back in the early teens, Tomo, some numbers that I'll pluck, like scanning percentage, what were you seeing your sheep move to and from, and how did that evolve?
Scanning was never so much an issue, and even today you'll have sheep, and I call it the show off shit that they do in pubs, and say, oh no, we scan 160, whatever. There's no point scanning 160 if you only wean 85.
Yeah.
So getting a merino sheep pregnant is not an issue. It's not really the issue. It's actually getting that merino ewe to take those lambs through to weaning is the challenge. So I've seen in like MLP trials, there's rams that will scan 160 and they wean 105. I mean, that's not good. We've got to get, if you scan 160, the average loss is 40%, but you want to get, if you can lose 20%, you're doing okay. So if you can scan 165 and wean 145, 140, yep, that's a good result. I reckon it's a good result. We want to get higher than that, but there's not many people out there weaning 140 plus. There's a few of our clients doing it, but there's not many traditional merinos would go anywhere close to that.
Yeah, that P weight trigger that you pulled back in the late 2000s, I suppose, is something that I reflect on that helps that critical time around weaning. And,
yep,
a lot of merino producers have been sort of almost suckered into long weaning times to give their lambs more chance to suck on mum, whereas animals that have that inherent P weight are ready to be weaned at a younger age and be managed slightly differently. How have you approached or changed that at Mergipin?
What, the joining process?
Well, the joining and then that critical weaning time, Tomo, like having robust lambs at weaning time, that's the thing P weight probably for me has made a big difference with.
Yeah, what it's allowed us to do is to shorten our joining period. So we now join for 3 weeks or just under 3 weeks, whereas years and years ago we were doing 8-week joining. So it makes it really hard to in your weaning process if you've got such a wide range of ages of your lambs and live weight. So if you actually can shorten it up to 21 days or 20 days, where we are, it makes the weaning process so much better for both the lamb and the ewe to actually get them off at 10 weeks or whatever, and away they go. And that's when you can, particularly with the high fat ewes, you use the green grass to get those ewes back in condition score 3.2, say, and then you can hold them, and it doesn't cost much to hold sheep. So then you're not having to really feed them a lot prior to the rams going out. They're already Mickey Mouse for joining, but you set that up from weaning, and those high fat ewes, high growth ewes are it's just so quick to get them back in condition for joining. Yeah.
So the likes of your weather lambs, Tomo, that like they've obviously quicker to market, better on feed. You know, what changes have you seen there? Like, as far as I know, the market in WA is sometimes challenging for lamb producers, but what have you seen from a weights and those sort of things perspective?
Oh, well, if you look at our genetic trend line, our P weights have probably gone from 5 to 6s, so we're probably sitting around 10 for P weight. So they're gaining what, 2.5 kilos at the same time as compared to a 5 to a 10. You know, their weight gain is going to be 2.5 kilos more in that same period.
Yes.
And aggressive feeders, high conversion, but we're still measuring all that sort of stuff to see how it fits in, and bringing in more eating quality stuff as well. And the issue I have with P weight is we don't go too hard on it if we can't cap adult weight, and that's the thing. If you can push P weight, and lots of people do, but if you're at 12 for P weight and you're at 16 for adult weight, those ewes are pretty hard to maintain condition on. So we try to have our adult weight lower than our P weight, which I think is a really important thing, just for running the ewes as cheaply as possible.
Yeah, I like that commercial element to Mujapin. It's always been attractive to me. If we're looking at a ram team, Tomo, where we probably don't like to hyper focus on specific traits, we more look at what a ram team presents as a group as they go out into a flock mating. Where are your clients that are taking that approach? Where have they got their weight, like their P weights, their fats, and their muscle? Importantly, their muscle. Like, I think that's also another piece.
Where are they sitting?
Yeah, where would some of those people be trying to average their ram teams?
Yeah. Well, we're probably looking at 2.5 to 2.8 for muscle, as a minimum to come into their team. Depending where, I mean, that's where the importance of a flock profile test. If they get the flock profile test, they can see where they are, and then they can choose which rams are going to take them forward in different traits. So it's all about trying to keep punching ahead. But
can we just add there, Tomo? We'll probably speak about it again and again, but just explain the flock profile test so that people who are maybe hearing it for the first time get an understanding about what that means to you and what you think that means for your commercial clients.
Well, the flock profile test is fundamentally, I think, the best money you can spend on your flock. It actually it tells you exactly where you are genetically. So it's 20 young sheep that you take a TSU from a DNA sample, and you send it away, and then you get a flock profile done of it. It's a sample of your flock, and it'll show you on, I think it's 12 or 13 traits that they've got. I don't agree with all the traits that are on there, but that's another story. But it gives you an accurate position of where your flock sits genetically. So whether you're strong in those, on what traits, whether it's fleece weight or worms or whatever, you've got. There's no bullshit. This is where you sit. So
yeah, it's a great baseline.
Absolutely. I just got one back from a client 2 days ago, and he rang me last night and said, what have we got to do? And I said, well, we've got some work to do here and there, but at least we know now where his flock sits.
Yes,
and we can actually move forward. So
that diagnostic piece, being able to diagnose by looking at that flock profile as a stud producer, you can then say, well, these are some areas where we can just add a little bit more focus to help us get your flock more productive.
Yeah, well, it's in conjunction with their breeding objective, and that's the other thing that farmers need to have is a breeding objective. Okay, combined with the flock profile test, and then you can actually, this is where we are, this is where we want to be. How do we get there, and how fast can we go? So that's, I think, a minimum every 3 years. If you can do a flock profile test every 3 years, I think that'd be a fantastic tool to help you get where you want to go. And then if you want to market your sheep, you can actually say, okay, these are averaging say 10 for P weight. I mean, magic for a finisher to buy high growth rate Weber lambs, store lambs to finish, as opposed to say the P weight's 2.3 or whatever. They'll be on feed forever.
Yeah,
that stuff, but yeah, I mean, these tools are available now. We never had them back then, but it's really good that we've got these tools now, and I think every producer should get on and have a crack at it.
You touched on something really, I think that's really important there, which is a breeding objective. When you're sitting down, doing, having conversations with Hamish about your own stud flock breeding objectives, but also working with clients, how do you go about doing that? Like, if somebody's never actually spent the time to think about what my breeding objective is, what do they get when they talk to Dave Thompson about that?
Well, it's got to be an achievable thing. You can't just say, I want more wool, or I want whiter wool, or I want this, that. It's actually, the ASBVs actually give you things like, I want to be 8 for P weight. I want to be 3 for muscle. I want to be 2 for fat. I want to be -70 for worms. Things like that. Things that are achievable. And once you get there, you can readjust it and say, well, you know what, I want to be -100 for worms, or whatever it might be. But it has to be something that's achievable. And so, well, how am I going to get there? And it can't just be a fluffy thing saying, I just want big sheep, fat sheep. It's actually something that you can tick off and say, yep, I've got that. Yeah.
So, like, I suppose we've touched on it a little bit, but one of the things, given where the state of the national flock is at the moment, reproduction's something that, if I'm not talking about it daily, it'd be at least 3 or 4 times a week with people about, where can they make good decisions around reproduction. So from a management perspective, where do you see improvements there? What are the things, like, are you focusing on YCon, or is there traits there that you like to talk to producers about?
Yeah, well, there's condition score. It's not hard to do. Everyone can do it. Keep your sheep in good condition, particularly when you're going to be joining, particularly your twin bearers. Make sure that they get the best, the Rolls Royce treatment. It's not hard for a single bearing ewe to have to raise a single lamb. I beggar's belief that there's still people who don't preg scan their sheep so they can actually make those management decisions. So get those. The only way we're going to lift lambing percentage is more twin lambs surviving. That's what it's about. I mean, it's as I say, it's easy for singles. It's harder for twins, but there's management packages out there how to do it. Make sure you look after them, those ones. So
just on that, looking after, Tomo, like, there's plenty of people that talk about different mob sizes and all of those sort of things, and they're a part of all of those management packages that most people have probably certainly had access to. Like, keeping the twins alive, what are some of the things that you've done that have helped keep more of your twins alive?
Reduce mob size, number one. So there's work that Amy Lockwood did when she was working here at studies, and I mean, you get down to mob size of 3 and they're all going to survive. But so we'd like our twin mobs to be 60 and under, if we can. So and because we have a tight joining and we use hot wires to split up paddocks, not just for our twins, but in small paddocks for the twins, just to get them to survive. So it's about getting that first 48 hours, get them to survive, and then you can pull the wires down. But keep those mobs small, and so there's limited mismothering, and that's made a fairly big improvement in our survivability. So lots of people say, oh, we don't have the paddock size, but we use 2 hot wires and plastic posts, and it takes 20 minutes to split up a 60 hectare paddock into 6-10 hectare pieces, and it can be done. Yeah.
I love genetic fat and the conversations you and I have had about genetic fat, but I love seeing producers who are using a modern merino for the first time, where there's actually an ASBV allocated and they've made a genetic decision that they want to include more fat. How has genetic fat moved over time? And do you see any linkage between genetic fat and meat eating quality?
Yeah, I reckon like 10 years ago, we probably thought that 1.5 to maybe 2 was probably the top of the tree, but now we're looking at 3+ for genetic fat, for high fat. I don't know what the upper limit is, but even at 3.5, it's still not a lot of fat cover as far as millimeters go. It might be the thickness of a $2 coin.
Yeah.
But the big difference between bred on fat and fed on fat. I mean, you can get any sheep fat, but it's the genetic fat that you've really got to work on to get that. And I've forgotten what the last bit of the question was.
It's just meat eating quality. It seems amazing to me that, you know, at Lamex in 24, we saw, you know, merino lambs competing really effectively with composite lambs. And, you know, when I get around the processes, I talk to people about intramuscular fat, how that's impacting the processor's ability to brand the end product. Tell me more on that and your opinions around that.
Oh, well, it's an ongoing thing for us because we're over here. We're just starting to get it measured at the abattoir. So I think those higher fat lambs have, probably have the more ability to lay down more IMF, but it's probably still not locked in. But I think we've got to try and maybe learn from the terminals to fat's not the enemy. Fat's not the enemy, really, genetic fat. And I think it's the most poorly misunderstood trait that goes around, that everyone thinks that that's a bad thing. And even on the Marine Select database, that you don't get a top 10 for a high fat animal. They don't have a top percentile band for fat. It's just there because there is still people who think that fat is not a desirable trait. And I think it is the trait. It is the trait. Yeah.
I saw one of your clients' lambs processed at Gundagai a couple of weeks ago, and it was fascinating to hear the enthusiasm for merinos, and to listen to the weight rate, like the actual age of those lambs, like merino weather lambs, when they were starting to show a bit of IMF. It was probably 11, 12 months, 3 or 4 years ago. You know,
Yep.
That particular client of yours, it's getting back down towards 8.
Yep.
And we're seeing intramuscular fat come in. That's anecdotal. I haven't got a doctorate next to my name, but it was really pleasing to see the way those lambs hung up.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is hard to go younger and try and get IMF because IMF actually comes with age. So it's trying to find those sides that will actually produce IMF at an earlier age. Those lambs you're talking about, if we could get them for another 6 weeks, I reckon they would have had a more IMF, because I know the size involved and they are high IMF size. But it is an age thing, so we're fighting that. So, but I mean, I think the merino's really well placed, because we haven't focused on growth and yield and stuff like the terminals have. Merinos have not gone down that path, mainly because it was all about wool. So
yeah. But now we're able to measure, I suppose, Tomo, and it's great to hear that you can look forward to getting at least some feedback from processors in WA. Do you see that changing the way you run your commercial flock? Where do you think that genetic fat, the IMF, the muscle, like where's the modern merino weather lamb placed going forward?
Super fast growing, absolutely. I say +1 for IMF and -3 or 4 for shear force. That's where we want to be, but it requires genetics to do it. You can't just click your fingers and you got it. You've actually got to wait for it. And there'll be some rams that it is quite difficult to have high IMF and high growth. Really quite difficult. So you can have really, really low growth and high IMF, but very small muscle as well. So you've got to be able to, as a breeder, that's our role, is to try and find those rams and to bring them into the industry. And it's hard to, because they're not, we've got to breed them. We can't. They're not on the shelf. We've got to do it. We've got to do it. Yeah. So
and it only comes with measurement.
That's right. So we might have a ram that's saying is plus 6 or 7 for growth, but he's off the chart for IMF and shear force. So we can bring that in and put them over sheep that are plus 9 and 10 for growth, and see if we can actually get up to that level. But it's just breeding is slow. It's not like growing a crop. It takes time to actually get that happening, and that's been the difficult part all the way along, is to have people courageous enough to stick with us, through those periods when we were really struggling with fleece weight, and people used to criticise us because of fleece weight, but we would not compromise on growth, muscle, and fat for fleece weight. And once, as Ferg said, once you've got those locked in, then you can work on other traits. So, yeah.
One of the things I hear stock agents and cockies talk about from time to time is the Mergevin type. And to me, it probably goes back to growth, muscle, and fat again. Yep. How, like, when you as a stud master look at the type of sheep you're breeding now and are seeking to breed in the future, what do you think the Mergevin type needs to be, 5-10 years from now?
Probably not dissimilar to now. Always a good nick. All right. Bare points, good feet, open heads, want to be alive, but will not die, resilient, all that sort of stuff, and easy to run. That's the thing we get back, particularly from people who have used our sheep and they have a comparable traditional flock as well, how they hold their condition. On suboptimal feed, they hold their condition. That's the type that we like. The deep bodies, the wide bodies, not long in the body, too long in the body, not narrow, but and really convert. So,
I'm fascinated by the Mergevin type. It's sort of like I can pick them in a yarding straight away. Those traits that sometimes, it's a bit like how we talked about IMF and how it can be counterintuitive, or we can have different traits working against each other. One really important thing that I think the sheep industry's had to grapple with over the last 15 years is WEC, and that, and I think it's it's all very well to have really good genetic fat, but I'm still seeing sheep in catalogues that are positive for worms. Tell me about what you've done at Mergevin to work on that trait, Tom.
Worked really hard on it. Just put a lot of pressure on. So don't use anything that's probably under 50 for WEC as a stud sire, to really push that hard. It's such an easy thing to do, like to move WEC. So and I if I was a commercial producer, I wouldn't be buying anything that was positive for WEC. It just being the first truck out here to the sale yards, if we have anything positive, just goes, and we probably wouldn't keep anything under plus minus 20. I don't reckon. So it is a fundamental trait that we're working really hard on. And I'd go to, like, with an unmules flock, I would say like DAG is probably up there with WEC as a really important trait, because if you're not mulesing, you do not want to have DAG, and DAG is a very heritable trait. So we do religiously go through, whenever the sheep come in the yards, we assess them. If they've got DAG, they are out the door, but it's recorded, so we actually have the data to make sure that when people buy our rams, that they genetically will be lower in DAG. So same thing, don't buy a positive DAG sheep if you are going to be stopping mulesing.
I think it's across all sheep for me, the DAG question. It's just adding labour. It just reduces the fun of being a sheep producer if your sheep have got half a 12-gallon drum of DAGs hanging off their backside. And look, I don't want to belittle the stud caper, but pretty sheep whose progeny have lots of DAG are not good sheep.
No, No, no. And we like to put pressure, particularly on the young rams and the young ewes, to try to make them express dag.
Mm.
You know, we don't, and we often get into trouble with age and stuff that we're not looking after sheep well enough, particularly the rams. But we need to put the pressure on to try to get that worm burden up and try to get the dag, to instill that, so we can sort the wheat from the chaff. I mean, better off to find it than have them on lucerne hay and bloody stock cubes and hide it. I mean, that's what I don't get. I mean, what a breeder's scared of. If they don't measure it. I mean, why aren't they measuring it? That's what I don't understand. Why aren't they measuring these particularly these animal welfare traits? I don't get why they don't do it.
That's great, Tom. Like, I think it's the fundamentals of how you underpin a productive sheep, whether it's a merino or a composite. If they don't have growth, fat, and muscle, producers make most of their money in the first 100 to 200 days after birth. They've got to have those traits, and they've got to be able to express them.
That's right. I mean, it's not an ASBV, but with feet. So the last sheep I would have trimmed was in 2002, I reckon. We just don't do it. If they've got bad feet, they are gone. And so it doesn't matter what the numbers say, how this could be the best sheep on the data, but if their feet are shit house, well, that's it. They go. So, and that's something that a lot of people, I don't think, even look at. So, anyway, that's, I think, a good thing to do for the industry.
Yeah, for sure, Tom, for sure. Look, thanks very much for finding the time to go over growth, fat, and muscle. It'll be another one of our little series, but I think it's a really important thing for people to be able to understand, what your journey was, and maybe it reflects on them. It's the best time to start is today. And if you haven't done anything on those traits, particularly the flock profile test, I'm with you. I think it's a very easy way to find out where your baseline is and address what traits that are impacting your bottom line.
That's right. But where do you go to get advice to fix it up? It depends who you talk to, but at least if you get your flock profile done, you can actually say, well, this is where I sit, and this is why maybe I'm only getting 85% lambs, because I'm not selecting them for these traits. So if you're looking for a reason why you're stuck at sub 100 despite your best efforts, it may well be genetics, and low fat, I would think, would be the main driver of that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Tom. I'll catch you on the next one.
Good day. Thanks very much. Cheers, mate.
Bye.